originating from the Telecommunications Board of Northern Kentucky. Welcome to Northern Kentucky Sports Legends, in conjunction with the Northern Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame. I'm Charlie Coleman, alongside the president of the Hall of Fame, Joe Brennan.
Thank you, Charlie. Our guest today is Harry Jimmy Dunhoft, and he's went to school at Ludlow, and most people only know him by the name of Jimmy.
I go by Jimmy.
And I was surprised as anybody when we did his bios and put it out and had Harry Dunhoft, and I said, "Who's that?" But Jimmy, glad you're here. Jimmy is also not only a member of our Hall of Fame, but he's been on our board of directors the past 2 years and does an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Jimmy, we usually start off by people, because we're in partnership with the Behringer Crawford Museum, and we try to get the history of the inductees and how they fit in with Northern Kentucky. We usually start off like when they went to grade school, their parents, how many kids are in your family, that you want to start out?
Well, I was fortunate. Came from a big family of 6 kids. My dad, Harry George Dunhoft, he coached me in Little League and was very supportive in all the activities that I did when I was in grade school. Fortunately for me, I was in a position where I got to play knothole baseball for Jack Ains. We all know Jack Ains. He's on our board of directors, of course, here in Northern Kentucky. And fortunately, Denny Fieldhouse and I made the all-star team in Kenton County every year, and I was kind of proud of that as a kid, you know. Moved up from there and got into Ludlow High School, and was the co-captain of the football and baseball team. We had a tremendous team in our senior year in 1964. Played football, basketball, and baseball there. Got to do an awful lot of things in high school and met a lot of good people, and I had to leave and went to college and played at Anderson College, and there is where I felt like I progressed into a good athlete. You get a little older, your skills get better, you get a little bigger, and
Maturity.
You matured somewhat. But I got to play football for a guy by the name of Dick Young. He was a quarterback at Tulsa University, was our head coach, and had some wonderful experiences at Anderson College. It's a good Christian college. It's up in Anderson, Indiana, about 35, 40 miles from Indianapolis. Some stories there. I remember one year, I think it was my sophomore year at Anderson, Boyd Dowler from the Packers came down, practiced with us. Just a quick story. He was running some routes and they were throwing balls to him. We had a little scrimmage and they put him in a split end. And I was playing linebacker in the scrimmage, and the quarterback rolled out, and as he rolled at Dowler's side of the field, and I took off after the quarterback, and Dowler just absolutely laid me out. He put a number on me and knocked me down. Of course, he was about 6'5" and 260 in those years, but I had some real good experiences in playing ball. I got to play ball against teams in Michigan, West Virginia, Illinois. Dad and Mom never missed a game. Never missed a game. I was very proud of that. One of the biggest accomplishments, I think the most valuable accomplishment I've ever had in sports in my life, was when they named me their MVP in '66. And the reason why it's so precious to me is that my teammates elected me that. That's when it's something. Mm-hmm. You know, your coaches are one thing that appoint people, fans are another thing that vote, but when the guys are in the trenches with you, they know who's getting the job done, and that's been an award that I'm very proud of. Moved on from that, played baseball in Anderson College, and my college coach was Carl Erskine, played for the old Brooklyn Dodger, great pitcher. Yeah. And I used to do everything I could to ride in Carl's car. We didn't have buses and planes in those days. We went in cars. Of course, there's only like 15 guys on a baseball team, 20 guys. And we go in 4 or 5 cars. And I would do anything I could to get in Carl's car because of the stories that he had. And one in particular, I'll tell you real quick, I often think of this. Carl was on the mound pitching against somebody, and Campanella was catching, and he crossed him up, threw him a curveball, and Campy had the one finger down for the fastball, threw him a curveball and caught him in a real bad spot.
Yeah.
buckled up the knees on Campanelli, bent over, and they called time. And Carl said, Jimmy, he says, I'll tell you what. He said, it scared me to death. He said, but Campanella always had that wad in his mouth, chewing tobacco. And he said, he come running out to the mound. He looked and he said, now, Carl, he said, you know, one fastball and two's a curve. And he's spitting all this stuff all over my uniform, he said. And finally, he trots back to the bench, and he said, I got off the field after the inning, and I went in there, and he said, guys on the bench were just rolling. He said, I had to go in and change my jersey. It's so much stuff all over it. So I had some pretty lucky things happen to me in my life. God's been good to me. I was a small guy playing middle linebacker, but we didn't have 300-pound guys in 1965, 66. You know, I played against halfbacks. Georgetown had a fullback that was a little All-American. Was the toughest guy I ever played against. And when he filled a hole, he filled a hole. But, you know, you had to be in shape. You had to have things together, and you had to know what you were doing. And fortunately, I got in the right position at the right time, and I was pretty successful at it. And I feel very fortunate to be able to sit here and talk to you today about those times.
Did you play the same position in high school and
I
college?
played linebacker in high school as well as college, but I played fullback in high school. But I always thought that I was a better baseball player. I loved baseball. Mm-hmm. I could watch baseball hours on end, and I was fortunate to be able to do a lot of good things in baseball. I wish I could still play today. Don't you, guys?
Do you play baseball
Well, they
for a
still
little
have the softball legs, you know, for
Well,
us.
the legs.
And those Ludlow guys play it.
Those guys are good. I just don't. I don't have it anymore. I'm gonna be 72 years old, and my athletics are behind me. But
Jack White's in our Hall of Fame. You see him. He
I know
comes to the
Jack.
meeting all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's 78 and he plays.
he still
every
plays.
week.
Yeah, I don't
In
have
fact,
the wheels.
the team they were on, I think it was 75 and over last year. I think they won the Cincinnati championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack's still out there.
Yeah,
so.
I know a lot of those guys still play.
Jimmy, you mentioned Jack Ains before, member of our Hall of Fame, and he's kind of like the Dick Jones of Bellevue. Is there anybody in Ludlow that Jack Ains has not coached?
I doubt it. Jack Ains he's a legend down there.
Yes.
I want to tell you right now, Jack Ains, he's done so much for that school and for athletics and to help kids. I can't begin to tell you all of the instances and the things that this man has done to help bring kids along, help them. I don't care if it was in studies, if it was coaching or what it was, Jack Ains has always been there. And he's been my idol most of my life because of what he's done for people. And I cherish him as a friend, and I'm happy to be on the board with him as well.
Well, Jimmy, we're going to have to take our first break. I'm getting a signal, but for everybody else in Northern Kentucky, please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Jimmy Dunhoft.
What are you doing here, Private Esparza? Getting strong, Drill Sergeant! Why are you here, Private Cochran? To be a soldier, Drill Sergeant! What are you doing here? Training to be a graphic artist, Drill Sergeant! You joined the world's greatest army to become a graphic artist? Outstanding! Now that's a man with a plan!
With unmatched training and over 150 careers that give you options beyond the battlefield, there are over 150 ways to become Army Strong. Find yours at goarmy.com/defy.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Welcome back, Northern Kentucky, as we continue with a sports legend from Ludlow High School, George Washington High School, the Ludlow Panthers, and Jimmy Dunhoft. Let's go back to Ludlow. I mentioned Jack Ains right before the break, but you mentioned something very important to every athlete that I've ever interviewed, and there's been hundreds, and that's your teammates.
Absolutely.
So take a few minutes and mention some of your teammates at Ludlow.
Well, there's a lot of them. Ludlow's a small school, but in my senior year, we not only had a great senior class, but we had a great junior class.
And mention that record. You guys were in football, 8-1-1.
We were
that
8-1-1 that year, and we played all the big schools. Not all of them. We didn't play Highlands and Holmes, but we played Campbell County. We played Boone County. We played Beechwood. We smoked Beechwood, by
Dixie.
the way. We played Dixie. The only game we lost was the Dixie. But guys like Denny Feldhouse, great left-handed pitcher in baseball, terrific running back, hurt his knee his senior year, but he was a great athlete for us. We had Tom Staley, who later became head coach at Ludlow, was a
Very
great
good
back.
football coach. I had to
Good
coach
coach.
against him.
Great guy, great family guy. Our senior class was phenomenal. We had Dave Eaton at one tackle and Jennings at another tackle. We had a guy by the name of Frank Klinger. He played defensive end, and he would absolutely take your head off. The hardest hitting guy I've ever seen in high school. His name was Frank Klinger. We had Terry Keller played, myself, was Don Harris. Don Harris was a great athlete at Ludlow, good basketball player, good catcher in baseball. He played all three sports as well. Kelly Ralston was another one. Buddy Jordan, Denny Malone. I can go. Becker was another one. We only had 63 people in our graduating class. I think 15 of us were pretty good athletes that carried Ludlow for a couple of years. And fortunately, it's tough for the small town. We got 7,000, 8,000 people down there. And, we're trying to compete against Holmes and Highlands and these schools that's got 5, 6, 800,000 kids. And, it's a numbers game. But we did well at Ludlow, and I'm very proud to be from that city.
We had an outstanding coach and a friend of mine, Danny Sullivan.
Very good football coach. Danny was a disciplinarian. He had his act together. When we went out on the practice field, everything was regimented to what we did every 15 minutes in each drill or whatever. And he commanded a lot of respect from us as a coach. And I learned a lot from Dan.
Bill Young was on that staff too.
Bill Young was 2 years before me. Okay. Bill, I believe, graduated in '62.
Okay.
But when he was a senior, I was a sophomore, I believe. But Bill was a great ball player, good ball player.
Played Xavier, I think.
Played at Xavier, and he did a tremendous job. But he was one of the studs in '61 or '2, I believe. Yeah.
Jimmy, Carl Wendroth, what was he to you at Ludlow?
Carl was my baseball and basketball coach. Carl was a statistic numbers kind of guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could play a game and 2 weeks later he'd go up to you and he'd talk to you about something. He'd pull out of it. He'd have a little card in his shirt. He'd pull out there about what you either did right or what you did wrong. Carl was a great coach. I got to see him recently, just a few months ago. Carl's been sick along with Dan Sullivan. We're all getting up in age, but both of those guys were great coaches. And I really learned a lot from them, and I have fond memories of both. Steve Kiefer. We only had 2 coaches in football when I played.
Another Bellevue guy.
Bellevue guy.
Sullivan and Kiefer.
Kiefer was our line coach, and he was...
Played at UK, I believe.
He played at UK. Steve was a bull. He was... a very nice man, a hard-nosed guy, and he took care of the line defensively as well as offensively, and of course Dan took care of everything else. In those days, we didn't have 5, 6 coaches. I mean, it was just those 2 guys. So, but I have very, very fond memories of the coaching staffs from Ludlow, and I'm very appreciative that I got to play for them.
You played shortstop in baseball.
I played short and loved it. I wish I could play today. I miss it that much. I watch the Reds every game, don't miss them, and I wish I was there. Got to play in Crosley Field once. What an experience that was.
Was that in a knothole? Or?
No, that was American Legion ball.
Legion.
Back in, I guess, 63, 64, 5. I'm not too old to remember. But nevertheless, the Crosley Field had, I don't know if you guys remember, but they had the old terrace in the back.
Yeah.
And, maybe 10, 12, 15 feet from the wall, it would go up on an incline. And believe it or not, it's shortstop. When you left the the dirt part of the infield. You know, you had your grass infield, and then your dirt infield, and your outfield. Well, when you backed up from the shortstop spot, it actually dipped down. I about broke my neck twice trying to go after a fly ball, but it actually went down and evened up, and then it went up the end. But playing at Crosley Field was a big experience for a young kid. You know, I think I might have been 16, 17 years old, and all of my greats were playing there at the time. You know, Johnny Bench and the guys, my gosh, there were some great ball clubs back in those years. Bench and Rose and all those guys, they were my idols in baseball.
Well, shortstop, prior to that, Roy McMillan.
McMillan, Johnny Mack. Yeah, Johnny Temple was his second baseman. They were a great double play combination.
Absolutely.
And
Big Clue.
Big Clue had to cut out sleeves in his arms. You know, he had the muscles here.
Yeah.
Wally Post.
Wally Post, Gus Bell.
Yeah, they had some good outfielders.
Yeah.
Back there.
Ed Bailey.
Ed Bailey, yeah, Edgar Bailey, yeah, absolutely.
Left fielder, Greenberg or Greengrass?
Greengrass. Jim Greengrass.
Jim
My
Greengrass,
first
yeah.
baseball glove was at Jim Greengrass.
Is that right? Yeah. There's some great ball players.
Still have it, by the way.
Do you really?
I do.
I have no idea where my equipment, gloves are or anything.
Actually, I
did.
gave it to a grandson, but I've told him it stays in the family.
Yeah.
Forever.
Well, absolutely. Those are cherished mementos. You know, they're something to hang on to.
I want to get back to that football season. I know we'll have to interrupt it with a break, but talk more about that 8-win season. And you and I
What a
talked
year.
off camera about that Dickinson system where you didn't get in the playoffs.
Yeah, we had single A, double A, triple A, I believe, in those years. Of course, it was all based on attendance at schools, I believe.
Yeah, enrollment.
And we were single A, small school, and we were under something that was called the Dickerson system, which, as a high school kid, we didn't know anything about. Well, in our football season that senior year, we never lost a game to any single or double A team. We lost to Dixie Heights High School, was the only team to beat us 14-6. We shut out 6 ball clubs. Nobody touched us in Class A, but this Dickerson system had us not going to the playoffs. It was pretty disturbing.
Well, you'd mentioned, you know, Danny had come from over in Milford, I think.
He did?
And you said you'd played like 3 Ohio teams, so
Correct.
I'm wondering if maybe he had scheduled those teams.
Well,
but,
we didn't play Milford, but we played
no, I mean Ohio schools.
Ohio schools, correct.
Yeah,
and he was instrumental in that.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
He was,
So,
yeah.
Well, we're going to take another break, Jimmy, and stay tuned. We'll be right back, and unfortunately, it goes really fast.
It goes.
We'll wrap it up. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Live with a human for a while and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she's actually not a morning person. I know she does strange tricks for no treats. I know that water makes her howl like crazy. I even know how the floor stays so clean. She's quick. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
He's Scooter, he's Nooter, and the coolest cat you will see. He always struts, he's got no nuts, and that's why he never springs his pee. He's not spraying. Other felines are so mean, not the cats without their jelly bean. Be cool. He's Scooter, the neuter cat.
Find spay and neuter options as low as $20 at GiveThem10.org.
Welcome back, Northern Kentucky, and Jimmy, we want to let you finish that 8-win season that the Panthers had that you didn't go to the playoffs.
Great year. So many fond memories of that year.
Who'd you tie? You lost to Dixie. Who'd you tie?
We tied Campbell County, and Campbell County is a moose. I mean, they're a huge school. We tied them 0-0. Fieldhouse got called back on 2 touchdowns, one for holding, one on offsides. Otherwise, we would have beaten them. But we had, I believe it was 6 shutouts. It could have been 5. I should have looked at it before I came. But nevertheless, we had one hell of a defense. And this Dickerson thing, when it came to the end of the year, when we lost one ball game to a AAA or a 4A school, which we were right there in the game. We got beat 14-6. At the end of the season, we're all expecting to go to the playoffs, and this Dickerson system
Yeah.
We didn't even get to go at all.
Who did go? Do you recall?
I think it was Bellevue.
Bellevue
I
went?
think Bellevue went, but we beat them pretty good too. But I had heard later from one of our members of the board of Northern Kentucky, Terry Keller, was telling me the other day that it was due largely that we played 3 Ohio schools, and for some reason that didn't figure into the point system of this Dickerson system. Pretty sad,
Yeah.
but you know, it is what it is. I mean, it doesn't take away from the accomplishments that we had that year, and the things that we got to do. But we don't want a state championship. We had some studs.
It's something that I'm sure you guys all talk about your reunion.
We talk about it all the time.
Joe?
Yeah, Jimmy, after you got out of college, you know, life goes on. Then
Yeah.
what did you do, like in your professional life and then your married life? You know, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Fortunately, 31 years ago today, or actually a few days, I met my love of my life, Kathy, and she's been quite a support system for me. She's from Mississippi, got me a Mississippi girl. I met her when I bought a franchise with Stanley Steamer down in Jackson back in the early 80s, and I owned that franchise and met my wife. And it's from a little town called Smithville, Mississippi. Well, she's got family in a little town called Amory, Mississippi, town of about 10,000, middle of nowhere. Got a 13-year-old super little stud, and I think he's a freshman, throws about 80 mile an hour, AAA student, all A's every year through school, great athlete. I'm hoping to do some big things for that young man. His name is Reese, Clayton Reese, and we're hoping he can do some good for our family. We're looking forward to that.
Well, keep us on the pass list.
I will.
Joe, and
I'm with him a lot. I talk to him a lot, and I'm hoping that he can make it big, you know?
What year is he? You're playing now?
He's just a freshman in high school,
Freshman in
but
high
he's
school.
very quick, got a good arm, good pitcher. Hopefully we can
Look,
get him up there.
make sure you keep him on the list, because our Hall of Fame gives the scholarships every year, the Jack Ains scholarships.
Well, we might have to
for
do
a
that.
high school kid going into college, and last year we gave 3 $1,000 scholarships. So
I'd like to see that happen.
that's what we're looking for, as relatives of the Hall of Fame.
Well, it sounds like he's going to be in the SEC at Ole Miss.
Well, I
and
hope so.
Mississippi State,
He's
maybe,
growing.
Full ride.
We're hoping that he does. He's great in both sports, but if something doesn't materialize for sports, he's extremely intelligent with a straight A student. So he's a part of the family we're all proud of.
Yeah.
You know.
Joe mentioned Carl Wendroff before.
Carl is something.
Carl and Danny married sisters.
They married
is that
sisters.
Right?
Correct.
Now, Carl was there at the same time, obviously, because he coached you in basketball and went on to Grant County.
He
and,
did.
And later, I think took Scott to the
He
state
did.
tournament.
He did. Carl, I had Carl in the early years, and he was the basketball and baseball coach. And Carl was more of a kind of a stat guy. He, you know, if you're hitting good and your average was good, and don't mess with it. But
it's good coaching. You
good
know.
coaching,
You
yeah.
got
If it's
don't mess with
fixed,
that
don't-
batting
Yeah,
style.
right. Don't mess with it if it's working. But I had an awful lot of respect for Carl too, and fortunately for him, when he went down to let's see, where did he go? He left Ludlow and went to.
Is it Grant? Is that where he went to Grant?
He had on their basketball floor
Yeah.
is Carl Wendroff's name in script writing.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, he did a lot for that school. And then he went on to Scott, and I think didn't he win a state championship or?
They won the region.
They won the region?
They won the region at Scott. So I
Yeah.
think he took 2 schools to the state tournament.
Yeah.
Grant and Scott later in his
Right.
career. So Dayton, Kentucky boy, Danny
Yeah,
from Bellevue.
absolutely, from Dayton.
And I think they met their wives down at Union College.
They
didn't
did. They went to
Yeah.
Union College together. They both played baseball and basketball together, and they get quite a story together. But, you know, I'll tell you, when you talk about coaches and guys like that, and you guys have coached, you've taught, and I don't know if you realize how important it is to kids, how important it is to give them the right direction. Carl and Dan both did that. Sports was one thing, but you had to stay clean in life. You had to do the right things. And
That's back in the days when they had curfews.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
you weren't allowed out after a
Absolutely. I think Carl one year had Eddie Meyer.
Yeah.
Eddie Meyer in that bunch. He was a great ball player down at Ludlow too. And they went on a losing streak, 4 or 5 games, and he just cut out dating. He said, "You guys aren't dating anymore."
We had mentioned Stan Arnson off camera when you
Right.
were talking. Stan had a rule during basketball.
No dating?
No girlfriends.
No girlfriends?
No,
Yeah.
nobody's allowed to have a
Carl
girlfriend.
got that way when we went on a losing streak, and he put a stop to that, and that caused a little bit of problems. Of course, I was fairly young then. I was just a freshman or a sophomore, but I have nothing but very, very good things to say about the people that I've played ball for as coaches, both as well as high school as well as college. It's every man should experience something like that, and I feel very lucky that I did.
We've only got about a minute to go, but what led you to Anderson?
Church college. My mother was First Church of God, and it is the First Church of God affiliation. School of about 2,000, fairly close to home. And in those days, you didn't get full scholarships to play ball. We got work grants and taking care of the gym and stuff, you know, and they provided that for me, and which helped pay for my education. But Anderson was a church college and still is. And one thing I'll say about Anderson, at the time I went to school there, in excess of 65% of the professors had their doctorates. And it was always a big thing to me to see them, you know, have their doctorate degree and to have experience and to guide their students in the direction that they put us. And I have a lot of good memories for that, you know.
Yeah, that's
Like
one
we
of the
all
things
do.
one of the things Tom Thacker and I used to talk about all the time was William Grant.
Yeah,
High school was the same way. He said they had the best teachers money could buy at the time because they were black and they wouldn't let these guys with doctorates and that. They couldn't get jobs in a white university, so they were back here teaching high school.
Say Grant. I can remember them up there in them stands. Say Grant. Those guys were tough.
Jim Brock was their coach.
Jim Brock.
if you recall.
Yeah,
he just passed away a couple months ago.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
It's sad to hear because he was a great man and a great coach.
Yeah.
We're getting a signal, Joe and Jimmy. We've got to wrap up, and time goes fast when you're having fun.
Absolutely. I appreciate it very much.
It's been a real pleasure.
Very much.
And,
thank you, guys.
Appreciate everything you do for the Hall of Fame, too.
I
being on the
appreciate
board
that,
and
too.
everything and giving back.
I appreciate to be a part of it. I really mean that.
Northern Kentucky, there you have another Northern Kentucky sports legend, and we'll see you next time.